Turn the lights and get ready for trail technique action. It's nice that you have had so many classes already. Hopefully you are starting to feel comfortable with some of the ideas that underlie the naturalism here and getting ready to share it, getting excited to share it. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but first here is our warm-up activity. Let's see if you can find the connections between these items. And you better get this one. Hair, heterodont dentition, and 3 middle ear bones. What do those 3 things have in common?
Well, they're for mammals.
They're all characteristics of mammals. You all knew that, right? And you just were being quiet because you didn't want to yell it out. Okay. There's our cute bat. I love this picture. You can see his tail scooped behind. You can see how that could help to swoop in and catch the bug. This is just a fun thing, nothing that you need to know, just getting your minds working a little bit. Okay, what do these 3 things have in common? Maps, reptiles, and weight loss clinics.
Scales.
Scales! Yes. There they are. Coastal sage scrub, riparian, chaparral.
Lacerated environments.
Thank you. Lacerated plant communities. There they are. Bombers, beaches, and bird eggs.
Shells, maybe?
Cartex, ants, and bees. Yeah, you know it.
This is Jeopardy. Totally.
Wagons, mussels, and invasive plant species. Someone? Anyone? They're all things that you can pull. Trombones, playgrounds, and the canyon trail. I think I heard someone say it, but very timidly. They all have slides. Dolls, Mr. Fox, Marble Spore, and Placeritas docens. They're all fantastic. You got it. And one more. Passion, awareness, and respect. This one might be trickier unless you have been busy reading the mission statement of the Placerita Nature Associates. To inspire passion, awareness, and respect for the environment, and to preserve and protect for future generations the history and ecosystem of Placerita Canyon. So this is why we're here. This is what we're doing. All the things that people are running around taking care of at Placerita are all supposed to point us to doing this. And I have a hope that after today we will all be in a better position to do our part to do that. So to me, really, the best way to do that is to help ourselves, but also the public we're working with, to unlock the hidden connections that they have. Some of those things in my connection exercise were really easy for everyone to see quickly, and some of them were a little more difficult. I think that in our modern society, a lot of people are losing recognition of the connection they have to nature. Just last week, we had a school group here, 70 first graders from downtown Los Angeles. And I asked them to raise their hand and tell me who thinks that they are a part of nature. Who thinks that you are a part of that? And probably 15 kids raised their hand. I said, who thinks you're not a part of nature? All the rest of them, hands up high. They don't see it, but of course it's there whether we recognize it or not, and we're in a position to help unlock that, help people to see it and notice it again. When my mom was, I come to you as the trail techniques teacher because of my love for sharing information. I'm not a professional teacher. I told you before I'm a food scientist, but I also have 5 kids, and I was the soccer coach and the math team coach and the Cub Scout leader, and I taught swimming, and I've done all kinds of things. My mom was a professional teacher, and she was teaching science to junior high school students in inner city Detroit. So you can imagine what kind of a group she had. And their school was across the street from a trash to power facility, and as a mitigation for whatever problems that might cause for the students, they had given an endowment to the school, and she had money to take her kids on an outing, and she wanted to take them to science camp. So they're coming from this inner city area, not that far away, probably about an hour and a half drive from where they were living. Every year, she said the first year it really surprised her what happened, but after that she knew to expect it, and it was the same every time. They were driving along the road, and they went off onto a dirt road on the way into where these cabins were. She said all the kids start screaming. It's so unfamiliar to them, they were panicking. She said the first night they were there in the cabins, the kids were petrified. There were no locks on the doors, no locks on the windows, and they felt so exposed and lonely out there in the wilderness. She said that even when, after she found out what happened the first year, she would prep them and tell them what to expect and how it was going to happen. She said still in the morning at that first night, she would find the kids all sleeping instead of on the beds in the corner together under the beds, because they were so frightened. She said when they went outside, they would be just huddled together, walking around, not wanting to touch things, not wanting to look at things. Then they would spend a day outside talking about the nature, interacting with the nature, learning about the nature, understanding the nature. She said that in the evening of the first day, every single time, the kids were running around, happy. They slept in their beds. The next day when it was time to go home, she said they cried because they had unlocked that connection. They understood that they were a part of that, and that was a part of them, and it was fulfilling and it was joyful, and that was life-changing for them. Our short time at Placerita can be life-changing for some of the kids who come here, but I can tell you that if you're here long enough, you'll meet all of these kids. The ones who look at nature with total disdain, the ones who look at it with boredom, and a grandchild picture here, the ones that look at it with fright. They don't understand it, and so it's scary to them. We don't have as long as my mom had with her science kids in Detroit, but in the short time we're here with these kids, if we present it right, we can change some of these attitudes, and we can help them to really live a more fulfilled life. Can you imagine with that short time, if we can unlock some of that connection, they can go away a different person and have a different perspective forever. But we can also go through and have it be this guy and not even notice what it is happening. We need to help them so that they will enjoy the connection that they have. And if we're going to do that, we've got to catch their attention. So for any person, any moment, for you right at this very moment, there are so many stimuli coming to you that it's impossible to deal with them all at once. And as babies grow and as we become older, we become more adept at learning to filter what things we are aware of at any given time. So right now, your body actually is aware of your position in space, of the temperature, the pressure of the chair against you, the sounds that are coming to you, the light that is coming around, the buzzing of the air conditioner. There are all these things that are happening right now, but I hope that that's not what you're concentrating on. You aren't thinking at this moment oh, the table is a little cooler than the air temperature and it's exerting pressure on my elbow, and my elbow was a little sore from when I bumped it on the car door. What can we do so that all those other things that are there to distract our park guests are not going to be standing out? The things that we want them to focus on are the things that are there. What we have to give them is not an eat your vegetables kind of thing. What we have to give them comes across as that, though, sometimes if we don't have the right attitude. So someone had facetiously put forward this set of hiking rules before. Maintain professional demeanor. Do not appear to have fun. Identify every plant. Focus on your prepared script. Do not be distracted by meddlesome wildlife. Share everything you know, and do not allow children to talk or be playful. When we put this list on the board like this, of course it seems humorous, but sometimes with the best of intentions, we still can get caught into some of those traps. Because what we're excited about, sometimes we think everyone else is going to be excited about. But we're here to help them have fun, and as they have that positive experience, that's going to be the best way for them to see that connection. Because actually, it's not just the eat your vegetables, it's eat the most beautiful thing you can imagine and totally enjoy it. Another grand picture. The first year that I gave this class, I had asked some of the more successful and experienced docents what they did that made them success, and these were the ideas that came up again and again. Be excited and happy. Act like you're surprised. You know, a good teacher a lot of times has a streak of the thespian. You don't always feel as connected to maybe the kids that are in your group as you would hope to, but if you are able to put on that show, when you're faking it, you will make it. So sometimes, yeah, I have seen this granary 1,000 times on the side of the trail, but if I see it and act like, whoa, look at this, and surprise, that emotion helps to catch the attention of the people that you are with. And that emotional connection helps to unlock that part of their brain that helps them know, oh, this is something worthy of attention. This is where I need to focus. Be friendly and positive. Be animated and funny. And all together, show enthusiasm. That's really the word that you need to remember from all of this, because these are all just outreaches of being enthusiastic about your situation. Call it the wow factor. When you are out there, everywhere we look, there is a wow. And you, as a docent, can help other people to see that. Maybe other people aren't noticing the wow, but you can point it out and you can make it a wow experience for them. So, long ago, Voltaire said, that which touches the heart is engraved in the memory. And as we are learning more about memory, we are recognizing that that is truth. Some of the things that are best stored are the things that are associated with emotion. And when we can put that wow in it, that's an emotional experience. And then in that very brief time we have with our park guests, we're able to get something engraved. So we have just come across this beautiful leaf. Some of you may know a lot about this. Some of you may know a little about this. But what I would like you to do is I would like each of you to turn to a person that is at your table or near you, and I want you to make some excited comments to each other about this piece of nature that you are encountering. Okay, go ahead. Turn to each other. I have no idea what it is, but it's beautiful.
see that sycamore? It's big and it's soft. Think of cherry, you know, it's really soft. That's what kind of
Okay, stop for a moment. Did you feel this is time for you to stop and do a self-assessment? Were you excited about this leaf? And were you portraying that to your partner? Did you feel their enthusiasm as they were talking about it? At this point, it isn't as much about what you're saying, but as how you're saying it. And I did feel, without even hearing your words, I could feel some of that enthusiasm coming through. Get in the habit of doing that. As you are becoming a more experienced docent, some of the things that will help you are the age-old practice makes perfect kind of thing. Take yourself on a hike. Give yourself some exciting comments. Are you making yourself bored or are you making yourself enthusiastic? Don't feel like, oh, I'm overdoing this. This is ridiculous. With the kids, you really don't overdo. You can be flying as high as you think you're in the stratosphere, and that still is going to be the level that will get a rise from them. Some of you were unsure what kind of leaf this is. This is, we're just coming out of winter, so you don't see so many of these big, beautiful sycamore leaves around. But you will become very familiar with them. There are a lot of cool, fun things to teach about sycamore leaves. And we can talk about some of those things after we go on and talk about some of these basic ideas once more. So you've gotten their attention. You wowed them, you had that enthusiasm, you had something exciting to say that was going to perk up their interest. Now that you've got it, you want to hold it. So, how are we able to do that? One of your best tools is the use of questions. So, once again, we're learning more about brains. We're able to put little sensors on, and it used to be the only way we could learn anything about a brain is once someone was dead. We could take it out of their body and chop it up and look at it. Didn't really help us a lot with how it's actually sending out its messages. If you think of what our brains are doing, it is pretty unfathomable that they can take care of all that they do. But now that we're trying to study learning from that different perspective of seeing where is the brain lighting up, how are these signals going around, what's happening there. We can show that when people are asked a question, there is a part of the brain that responds that is the same part of the brain that responds when you have a need. If you're thirsty, if you're hungry. In children, this happens. Sometimes in adults, that part of the brain doesn't light up anymore because we have learned to turn it off. We don't care about it. But it is something built in that helps us to learn the things we need to learn. Think of where an infant grows in their capacity from their birth to the time that they're old enough to come on a school tour at Placerita. And it is incredible how much that they have been able to learn. One of the reasons they've been able to do that is because of that little curiosity center. And if you ask a question, that little thing lights up, and there is an innate desire to fulfill that journey to find the answer to what that question is. But asking questions is a skill, and there are some different ways that you can be successful in nurturing that little in that you have for helping them to learn and keep attention. One of the best things you can do is to ask the question before you're going to tell about it. Here's a group of people, they don't know what that leaf is, so I'm going to ask them what it is, get that little center of the brain lit up, and now that I know that they're receptive, I'm going to be able to tell them about it. So here is your leaf. I would like you to think of a good question that you can ask your partner and then tell them something about this leaf. Go ahead and give a practice. You should both have a chance to ask a question. If your partner asks the question you were going to ask, think of another one. Go ahead, ask and tell.
Fairly certain with them.
Why do you think the leaves are
Oh, that way.
All right. Anyone here a particularly interesting question? Nothing that stood out? Asking questions is another thing that you can practice on your own. When you look around yourself, can you think of questions to ask? It can be personally invigorating. All right. Tell before you ask. People like to be able to answer questions. It helps them feel good. If you're on a hike and you're always just asking questions and they don't know the answer, after a while it's a little deflating. Give them the answer and then ask the question, and not only is it reinforcing, but it also helps them to have that emotional lift that is going to keep them focused in. So guess what? I want you to go ahead and tell something to your partner about this, and then ask a question that will back up what you just told them. A little bit more difficult assignment, but you can do it.
You know, and like when I say eucalyptus, sycamore, the western sycamore. You see that sycamore is little red eucalyptus. You see that sycamore? It only grows in near rivers. Why do you think that it comes near water
So I do hear some good sycamore tree discussion happening here.
It's a good way to remember these trees.
So when you tell and then you ask, this doesn't have to be something deep. I am completely serious in saying that if you come up to this tree and you say, boys and girls, we are so lucky today to see this beautiful tree. This is a sycamore tree. What kind of tree is it? Right away, that simple asking and telling is an effective way to pull them in. And was that big of a question? Did you even notice that that's a question? It doesn't come, but those are the questions that can be effective. It doesn't have to be deep and big, but I tell you, look at this beautiful sycamore tree. What kind of tree is it? Sycamore. What kind of tree is it? Sycamore. It's a sycamore tree. And one of the things that I love to do, especially with the younger kids, is after we've learned to identify the plants, I tell them, you know, it's kind of cool when you make a new friend and then you are at the grocery store and you see your friend and it's like, oh, hi, John. Oh, hi, Susie. And then you go somewhere else and you see him and you can say hello to him. Here we are walking through the park. Now we have these new friends. Let's say hi to them. And so it's really cute. Those little first graders that I had last week, we were walking along and I could hear them saying, hi, oak tree. Hi, sycamore tree. Have them do that. As they're connected to the nature, then it is their friend. All right. Another good idea is to mix easy with hard. You're going to learn so many things in this class that you are never, ever going to mention on a hike. You can keep some of those things in your pocket, But you can also use some of those things to enrich your group. Your students are going to come at all different levels. Even if you have a group of 6 students, it's very possible that you're going to have one kid there who's struggling to even be able to walk along the trail, and another kid who is dreaming of solving some kind of math equation that you would never even be able to come close to. Recognizing the diversity in your group, try to put some things in there that are going to appeal to the higher level and some things that are going to appeal to the lower level. We want to reach everyone. We want every person to walk out of here with that connection. So you can see that talking about the same thing can be talked about in such different depth. Here's another situation that you've encountered. I would like each one of you to think of one easy and one more difficult concept that you could ask about as you come past this very same sycamore tree. You can think for a minute and then go ahead and ask your partner one easier question, one more difficult question. And you know what? Let me tell you something too. You don't always have to ask questions that you personally can answer. Some of these questions are just little floaters that are put up into the air to get their brains working, maybe even to get your brain working. And so go ahead, an easy and a hard.
So why do you think the acorn woodpeckers prefer these trees?
What do you think you might be doing? You might be looking for what would be the purpose of the red on his head?
How much damage would they
We're going to put you to work. So you know what's one thing that's kind of cool about your questions? I can hear that some of the questions you're asking are questions that you don't necessarily know and your partner does, and you are having a learning experience right here. Sometimes the questions that you ask that are easy can also just be observational. Asking a question about this scenario is, not all the kids are even going to notice that, but instead of saying, look, see the bird, saying, what do you see in the tree is a much better way to get their brain to engage. If you're just giving them the command, look, see, it's not nearly as full brain active as having them look and make observations themselves. And if you say, whoa, what do you see in the tree? Some people are going to notice the bird. Some people are going to notice the hole. Some people are going to notice the bark. Some people are going to notice the seeds. Some people are going to notice the leaves. It's really cool that they can have that experience of engaging with the thing that is connected to them instead of that is connected to you. Asking questions allows that. Okay, we have another experience with a sycamore tree here. Just going on with your question asking, talk with your partner once again and see if you can ask any question. If you're wondering where the sycamore tree is, that can be something that you bring up with your partner. But go ahead and ask questions. These aren't necessarily questions that you can answer. But here you are walking along the trail. What's a question you can ask as you encounter this?
Why do you suspect that the sycamore tree is growing closer to the river than that palm tree. Why does the palm still curl leaves and the sycamore
So it may or may not surprise you that a lot of park visitors, when they see a tree without leaves on it, think that it is dead. When you ask questions, another important thing is to allow thinking time. A lot of times, especially when you're asking those simpler questions, here we have a sycamore tree, what is it? You expect the answer to come right away. But sometimes if you're asking especially a little bit higher level question, don't be in too big of a hurry to have the question answered immediately. I got a lot of practice with this one. I have a son with high functioning autism. And when he was younger, it would take so long for something to come into his head and then come back out. I always had the feeling that it was kind of like I was speaking a foreign language that he didn't know well, and he had to take it into his mind and translate it into his language, and then formulate his answer and translate it back into my language, and then figure out how to make his mouth move to say it and let it come out. And I literally would ask a question and then start counting slowly with my fingers. And if I got up to 25 and there'd been no response at all, then I would gently say, are you still thinking about that question? And sometimes he was, and sometimes if I waited for the answer to come out, it would be amazing and so worth the wait. Don't be in too big of a hurry to prompt or go along. If you've asked a good question, sometimes it's worth a good wait. And you can do that trick of counting on your fingers too if it's not coming out very quickly. But with our limited time, don't wait too long. And if the answers aren't coming, you don't always have to fill them in anyway. But do that slowly. Really, really big deal to me. And I think to all of us that want to have as many connections happening as possible, let everyone be involved. We all know that there are some children that you put them in a group no matter where you are, and they're going to be in the middle of everything, no matter what. And there are others that are going to stand back, and sometimes when they're standing back, they may still be involved in their own way. But we want to be sure that they are involved in some way. We don't want to let those people be just going with the flow and not have any idea what happened. We try to keep the groups that you will lead on hikes a small enough number that you can notice every single one of them and be sure that there's some involvement that every one of them is having. So how are you able to keep everyone involved? We've come to another sycamore tree. You are ready to pose a question to your group. Like you to think with your partner of a good way that you can talk about this in a way that you would feel that you were engaging everyone in your group. So go ahead and strategize with your partner. What's a good way that you could have involvement?
I think I made it
So why do you think that mistletoe is growing on this tree? What do you think it is trying to be? It is itself is still nutrients. But I talk about how like you color mistletoe that are used to make a glue and circular so we don't and then I talk about the thing that's use it for medicinal purposes.
All right. So do we have some ideas? Do we have some ideas as to how you can approach this that would involve your entire group and make each one of them be a participant in the discussion? Anyone share something with us? An idea that you came up with or that you heard that would help the whole group to be involved?
Just a general question of, what's strange about this tree, or what do you notice about this tree?
Okay, so asking a really great question like that is a good way to have them all be thinking about it. Anything else come up? Yes.
Okay, one of the docents asked the kids, have they ever, when they celebrate Christmas, does mom or dad ever hang up green stuff in the house, and when you stand under it, do you get a kiss? And some kids look and yes or no, and he takes a girl and a boy and stands them under the sycamore tree and says, have you ever heard of mistletoe? Oh yeah, well there it is, and you're standing under it, you're supposed to get a kiss. And the kids are like, so that's one I heard.
Okay, so asking that connection that is personal to each person, do you ever have this green stuff hanging in your home at the holiday time that does involve each person in a way because they're each searching their own memory bank and thinking about that? Let's talk, and all of you did notice, and this is really cool to have the contrast of the mistletoe that is growing out of the sycamore that looks like it is dead. It's in its dormant state. But let's talk about some other things too that you can actually gauge their connection to what you're talking about. So sometimes what I like to do to know I'm asking those questions, I want to see, are they really processing it? Are they really thinking about it? Sometimes I ask everyone to answer the question at once. So I say, here we are standing by the tree. What do you see here? I want everyone to tell me your answer. And you get this chorus. And you can notice right away, oh, that kid wasn't answering. And you can make a note of that. And you can say, okay, we're not ready yet to talk about something else because not everyone gave me their answer yet. Go ahead, I want everyone to tell me. What do you see here? Blah, and let the chorus come. That doesn't take up too much time. Our time is limited. We have to be efficient with the things we're doing. Another thing you can do is ask for people to raise their hand. Ask for the vote. And you can see if every hand is going up and give them a chance to answer yes or no. Another thing, if your group is small enough and you have enough time, is to say, okay, here we are by the stump from the oak tree, and we know that each ring represents a year in the life of that oak tree. How many rings do you think there are here? I need everyone to give me your guess. You. And you don't go past someone until they have participated and you know that they are connecting in some way. All those things can help you on the whole to make sure that everyone is involved with your questions. Do praise participation over accuracy. If they tell you that something is, if they think the oak tree is a birch tree, don't make it a big deal like, you think it's a birch tree. We want them to say, I'm so glad that you are trying to think of the name of this tree. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you are trying to notice how this works. We are learning together, and scientists make a lot more answers that get down than the answers that wind up being right. The good thing is that you are trying to think of something and that we are going forward. All docents have their own style and you'll have your own style. But when you ask for an answer and there's something specific that you're looking for and the kids are answering, and I've seen some docents and they're answering and they're like, no, that's wrong, no. I think that sometimes that makes them take a step back and they're more hesitant to be involved the next time. Good try, nice one. Okay, keep thinking. Let's find some other answers until we get to the point where we can all be happy with what we've come to. Try to kick those negative words out. And also maintain an awareness of your audience. You might go on a hike with a group of kids, second graders, and they are so engaged in every single thing you tell them about plants, and it's so fun and it's so exciting, and the next day you have a group of second graders, maybe it's even the same school, they sent half the kids one day, half the kids the next day, and you start talking about plants, and this is what you have. Be ready to adapt and change. That's what nature is, and that's one of the reasons why working at Placerita is so invigorating for you also, because you have a chance to adapt and change. Notice what's happening, and if this group isn't the group that likes plants, maybe this is the group that is just going to really enjoy sitting in the riverbed and looking at rocks for half an hour. If that's what is engaging your students, and if that's what is making them find that connection and walk out of here changed and more attached to nature, do it. Be ready to do it. But you have to be noticing what's happening with your group. Sometimes you're asking those questions, you realize this is not the way to deal with these kids, and you go somewhere different. Sometimes the best thing is to just let them hike for a while. Tell them, okay, we're just going to walk for a while. I'm not going to say a word. Oh, I'm so excited. I really want to tell them about this, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I'm going to let them explore for themselves right now and walk off some of their energy, walk fast, get them moving, and then you can stop and start to kind of pass along some of your knowledge, but see what things that they picked up that you can help them on. I neglected to find out if one of our docents who comes and talks about different characteristics of kids at different ages was going to be here today. She has a really great handout, and since I didn't confirm, obviously, she's not here, I'll make sure that that is something that gets put on your access. Jackie's here?
No, Fred?
Yeah, Fred I'm going to get to in a minute, but Jackie has her list of, she talks about how kindergartners really have no sense of time as we think about it. They yesterday is pretty much the same as 50 years ago, which is pretty much the same as 1,000 years ago. So when you're trying to make reference to things like that, it doesn't work with them. Second graders love jokes, and she has a really good list that she's made, and once you have access to that, go ahead and read through it. It'll help you understand a little bit more. We were all that age once, but even the younger among us don't necessarily remember what it was like to be a first grader. And that can help you not only prepare for your group, but also have different kind of expectations. We know so many cool things and we want them to know it too, but sometimes their mind isn't ready yet. So if we're aware of our audience, we can have a different expectation. So another thing that we can do to be more successful on the trail is to build associations. People used to think that the way our brains work with memory was kind of like a bookshelf in there, and when someone needed a new memory, they would go and take a book off the shelf and look at it and then put it back in. But the more we have learned, we realize it's more like a building, and people know things because they're able to attach those items of information to other items of information that are already stored there. Building the initial foundation is more difficult. It takes so much work for those baby brains and little kid brains to get that foundation there. But then once that foundation is there, they can start learning so much faster. And that's what we see among the elementary school age kids. And we still have that ability to do that as we age. Sometimes it's like we start thinking, I've already made all the associations I need. We haven't. And we stay younger and more vibrant if we can still keep making those, but as we can attach into things that they already know, then they have a better chance of sticking. And that is exactly the way the California standards have been written, trying to lay a foundation that will be built upon, and we can use that as we are sharing information here because they have been building those foundations in their classes, and we are really enriching that and adding to it when the school groups come here. So if you look at the way California standards are written, it looks really confusing and it's very education mumbo jumbo, but a lot of the same ideas are woven into each level of learning. So we can look here. Here is a standard for kindergarten to second grade, where the objective is for the students to ask questions, make observations, gather information about a situation people want to change. You can look in high school. The standard is to analyze a major global challenge with qualitative and quantitative criteria and constraints for solutions for the account for societal needs and wants. Even though it's using a lot more big words and saying it in a different way, it really is kind of the same thing. And that's supposed to be something that's built upon year after year and makes it so that they are having that connection that will build them up so that they can work at a higher level. But the center of the science curriculum that we actually need to be aware of and can help us in dealing with them is learning to understand the scientific method. So in kindergarten, in their own way, they're starting to learn about this. Going up to, by the time our students are in high school, they are expected to be able to apply this in doing their thing, but really a day at Placerita still has an opportunity to exercise this. So the scientific method starts with observation, asking questions and doing research, learning about the things that we already think we understand, and using that as a jumping off place to make a hypothesis. So some people think of a hypothesis as being a question that is just asked out of the air. The hypothesis comes after the observation and after the study. The hypothesis really is, where can I go further with this? What is a question that I can try to answer? Experimentation is a planned procedure to try to answer that question, yes or no. And the conclusion is to reject or strengthen the hypothesis. So in science, everything that we have are theories. We have the theory of gravity that we think of as, well, of course, everyone knows that and it's totally proven. Nothing can be 100% proven in science. We just have not come to any test that we have done so far that is able to disprove it. And each time that happens, it becomes stronger and stronger. But we never come to that point where we are 100% sure of anything in science. And as educated scientists, you need to be aware of the bad science that is out there, and some of these little things that I guarantee you, if you read the newspaper, you will see misapplications of science. And we could probably think immediately of some ways that these are done, but I really think it's important that we go through this so that you are better educated to try not to fall into these traps yourself. So bad science is often spotted by sensationalized headlines. when something sounds really, to catch your attention, sometimes a bit of science or some fake science will be written up in such a way as to be, the birds of North America are about to be extinct. Well, there is a trend toward their populations decreasing, but if you see something that is totally sensational, that's a clue to you that you need to be cautious in approaching it and believing what it says. Misinterpreted results. Even as a citizen scientist, as you are, you can sometimes recognize that the results that people are reporting don't necessarily go along with what they say. I hear studies like that all the time in the news when someone says, there's this study that just came out and now we know this, and when you read the study yourself, it's like, no, it doesn't show that. I was in college in the 70s, and since I'm a food scientist, that was the time when the whole sugar causes hyperactivity thing was just making headlines. And I had a chance to look at the original research and see that's not what that research showed at all. But it became a sensationalized headline that a lot of people bought into. And how many people do you know today that think that science tells you that sugar makes kids hyper? I'm sure a lot of people do, but if you look at the science, it's not true. Now, there are individual cases when maybe that happens. A family needs to make their own decisions, but science does not tell us that. Conflict of interest. A lot of studies are funded by companies and individuals that have a vested interest in the outcome. It doesn't necessarily mean the science is bad, but it means that you need to look at it carefully to be sure that it is being evaluated accurately. Huge one, correlation and causation. I had oatmeal for breakfast and I'm teaching this trail technique class, so the oatmeal caused me to teach this class. Of course not. That's ridiculous, but there are a lot of studies that don't clearly delineate the difference between that. And as an educated citizen scientist, you can look for that in understanding how much credibility you should give to something. Speculative language. Often at the end of a research paper, there is a place where you put additional questions that you can come up with that is supposed to be a jumping off point for other scientists, but some people take those speculative questions and put that into the articles that are available to the lay public, and we think about that as the science. That's not science. Sample size too small. The bigger your sample size, the more accurate your results are likely to be, but also the more expensive your study is likely to be. If you see, a lot of times there'll be a report in the paper about these 5 people took this drug and these glorious things happened. 5 is not a representative sample of the human race. Also unrepresentative samples. There are a lot of times when you can pick it out easily that they took 5 people who volunteered from the basketball team to do a study on heart rate. That is highly unrepresentative of the, not only were they already on the basketball team, but they were volunteering. They wanted to be part of that. You can figure out that a representative sample would be, you take the group and at random you have the subjects chosen. A control group, anyone tell me what is a control group?
It's another group that does not participate in whatever it is you're studying.
Exactly. So then you can tell more, was this really showing a result, or was it going to be the same whether it was happening or not? And that control group also, should be not aware, if it's at all possible, of what group they are part of. That's why when they're doing drug studies, they're supposed to give the pills that look exactly like the real pills to the control group and the group that is being studied. And the best studies, the people that are going to interpret those results don't even know what they're looking at. It's the next level. That's a blind study versus a double-blind study. Cherry-picked results, you see that also all the time. Choosing, oh, look, this person had a really great reaction. We're going to use that person to talk about what the results were. You have to give every participant an equal portion of the result. Unreplicable results. People do studies and then 50 other people do the same study and don't get the same results. We, in our society, are burdened with the people that have cherry-picked results from people getting sick from vaccinations, and the results of some very small studies showing that there could be a negative reaction cannot be replicated. And when you look at the 50 studies that show there is no harm, we still have a lot of people in our society that take that one study and say, yes, there is harm. This, it's bad science to let ourselves be swayed by that. And sometimes it's hard not to, because the one is the sensational thing, and it's easy to believe and it's easy to understand. But if we're going to be rational scientists, then we need to be aware of that as being a problem.
A classic example was cold fusion.
That is a fantastic example. Yep. We can't do it. We would love to. It would be so amazing if we could. One guy got people all excited, but no one could ever replicate.
And these are well-known, good scientists too.
Yep.
They weren't outlier scientists.
Yep, that's right. And they've shown this last year, one of the top scientists in his field was denounced as falling prey to a lot, not just one, but multiple of these bad science things, and leading astray a lot of the science research that is going along. It happens even at that high level, but we can try to be aware of these pitfalls and not let it happen to us. And journals and citations is on there. There are a lot of scientific journals now where you can pay to have your article published in that journal. And then you see, just going on the internet, the story of, well, in this journal there's this story, but if you look up that journal, you'll find out that it's one of those kind of journals, and it has not been vetted, and it has not been refereed, and it does not have value in your way of looking at the science. So in that building process, I wonder if Fred does he want to do his presentation now or after the break? Do you know?
I'll ask him.
Okay, why don't you go ask him, and we'll just start talking about it. I have collected some of the California science standards for the different ages that we may see here in Class Rita. And you can see how some of them build on each other. And these are also things that I feel have a connection to things that we are likely to talk about in Class Rita. So in kindergarten, these are some of the things that they're supposed to learn, and they're supposed to be proficient in these ideas by the time they are leaving that level. All animals need food in order to live and grow. They obtain their food from plants or other animals. Plants need water and light to live and grow. It's so fun to kind of think of the kindergartners, and to some of them that's a new idea and they're just learning it, and it's so fundamental to life that they're just getting that into their little brain of things that they're going to live with for the rest of their life. Plants and animals can change their environment. Things that people do to live comfortably can affect the world around them, but They can make choices that reduce their impacts on the land, water, air, and other living things. And living things need water, air, and resources from the land. They live in places, have things they need, and humans use natural resources for everything they do. I mean, think of learning that. Cool to think of learning that. We hope everyone knows those things, but they don't necessarily. Is that fun?
He's kind of helping, so he'll do it after the break.
Okay,
So.
perfect, fantastic. So we'll finish up this list and then we'll go on break and come back up. So in first grade, all organisms have external parts. Different animals use their body parts in different ways. See, hear, grasp objects to protect themselves, move from place to place, seek, find, and take in food, water, and air. Plants also have different parts. Roots, stems, leaves, fruits, flowers that help them survive and grow. Adult plants and animals can have young, and many kinds of animals, parents and offspring themselves engage in behaviors that help the offspring to survive. Young animals are very much, but not exactly like their parents. Plants also are very much, but not exactly like their parents. Individuals of the same kind of plant or animal are recognizable as similar, but can also vary in many ways. You already see a little bit of growth from those kindergartner ideas that are being built upon by the first graders. Plants depend on water and light to grow. I thought they already learned that. Well, now they're learning it in a different way, and they also are reinforcing that idea so that it becomes a permanent part of them and their outlook on how the world is working. Plants depend on animals for pollination or to move their seeds around. We have a great chance to talk about things like that. It's just reinforcing the thing that they have learned in their school lessons, hopefully, not always. Sometimes we're helping them learn it, and that is the way they're going to learn it for the year to meet the science standard. There are many different kinds of living things in an area. They exist in different places on land and in water. Some events happen very quickly, others occur very slowly over a time period much longer than one can observe. That's something that they really have to wait to second grade to learn about, because a lot of children previous to that time don't have the brain capacity to understand how time is flowing. Wind and water can change the shape of the land. It's so cool. We can show that happening right at Placerita. We can show how the land has changed over the course of a couple weeks from the storm. Maps show where things are located. The shapes and kinds of land and water in an area can be mapped. Whew. Getting in a smaller print because there's more that they're supposed to be doing once they get to grade 3. Reproduction essential to the continued existence of every kind of organism. Plants and animals have unique and diverse life cycles. Characteristics of organisms are inherited from their parents, the environment, all of so affects the traits. If you're interested in more of this list, it will be accessible to you. I also have it written down in even more detail somewhere else. You can see here in grade 4, they're learning some of the same things, just at a higher level. Plants and animals have internal and external structures that serve various functions in growth, survival, behavior, and reproduction. They already learned about that, but they're learning about it again in a better way. Energy released from food was once energy from the sun, which was captured by plants in the chemical process that forms plant matter from air and water. The essential idea from our cool whiteboard presentation is out there. In grades 6 through 8, we don't get nearly as many kids that are in these age groups. They're learning about those same things, just at that different level. We are, yeah, you really sometimes feel like this. I think we are going to take, well, you know what? Let's see. I think I'll finish what's on here because there are only a couple more slides, and then we come back and we won't even need to use this. You will occasionally feel like this when you are on the trail. A couple of rules to assist you in keeping control. If at the very beginning you establish the rules, a lot of times they will follow them. I like to use 2 rules. I say, stay on the trail and follow the leader. Who's the leader? I'm the leader. And really, all other things can usually be fit within those 2 rules. And if they do something that is against one of those, say, 2 rules, 2 things. Can you remember those 2 things? Oh yeah, sorry. I'll get back on the trail and they police each other too. When it's a small number of rules, then they'll be telling each other, 2 rules, get back behind the leader. You don't even have to say it. Tolerate safe, energetic behavior. As long as it's not safe, these are kids. Let them have fun. We're not in the classroom. This may be one of the only times the whole year when they're actually doing learning outside in an active way. Let them make the most of it. The chaperone that will always be with you can be called upon to help you with discipline if it's necessary. Not very often it is. Mostly they're great. Speak privately with disruptors. So if you have someone who's causing a problem, a lot of times the problem will be solved if you just have a little personal conversation with them and tell them what you would like them to change so that they can be a better part of the experience. I kind of mentioned before, sometimes if they're just so energetic you don't feel like you're able to get any learning done, walk quickly along the trail. Sometimes just getting some of that out, they've been sitting on the bus, they've been sitting in the classroom, whatever. Now they have some energy and they need to get rid of it so that they can get themselves down to that level of being able to listen and communicate. If you have someone who is particularly unruly, sometimes you can ask them to be their assistant, your assistant. They're wanting to have some extra attention and they can get it by being up there with you. One of the biggest problems sometimes is that everyone wants to be up next to you. So if you have one of those kind of groups, you may need to rotate the line order to keep things in. Okay, until we get to the next stop, you're going to be my hiking buddy, and then when we get to the when we're walking to the next place, you're going to be it. Everyone's going to get their turn to be at the front of the line. There are some kids that have lots of questions. Fantastic! They really want to talk about these things. Awesome! They want to share their personal stories of connection with nature. Great! No, it's really fun and it can be interesting for them to be able to tell that, but not necessarily to the whole group. So please don't let one person's personal stories monopolize your group time. But when you're walking, let that person that has all kinds of things that they want to share talk to you as you're going down the trail. And then it doesn't take away the time that you're trying to use for other people to make their nature connection. That last one, I'm not quite sure how it made it onto that rule. I'll talk about that one. Our docents say that one of the biggest complaints that the students have is telling them about how they're hungry. And when they're trying to talk about anything at all, the kids say, "When's lunchtime? I want to eat." Now, if you have good audience awareness and you are keeping them engaged, those hunger complaints are less likely to come up. But even if you are the best, most engaging, fantastic, exciting docent in the world, you're still going to get some kids that are just fixated on that sandwich that they brought in the bag, and you're not going to get past that. So we'll talk about the photosynthesis response to hunger complaints after you're able to sate your hunger with a little bit of a break. We'll try to reconvene at 10:35. So go ahead. Presentation to the circumstances and vary it. Anything, no matter how great it is, can get boring after a while. And so some of our docents have some really fun ways of making a different kind of presentation along the trail. And here's Fred to share his bag of tricks.
Thank you, Vicki. I have to tell you several of these tricks. They say copying somebody is the sincerest form of praise. Some of my things came from Vicki. Some people go out and they have nothing but their quick wit and their mind, and they don't carry any props. Rick Brammer, I remember when I first started, did a great job and no props. And I get out there and I feel like, well, I need something to rely on to fall back. So I carry my bag here. And first thing I'll tell you is, when you got through the tunnel down there on the way to open Gold Drinks, which eventually I'm sure will be reopened, I always forget the dates, like when everybody got here. So these are the dates on my bag. So I could say, well, the Batavia got here in 450 AD, and on August 10th, 1769, the Spaniards got here to Porto in 1821. It became, let's see, oh, 1821 to 1845, it was owned by Mexico, not Spain. And 1849, it was owned by the state of California. So, anyway, let's see what I got here. This is a big sycamore leaf. I didn't climb the tree to pick that. But sycamores actually have the largest leaf of any tree in North America. And the kids always say, oh no, palm trees have got big, bright, and those aren't leaves. So that I can still make a tree stand. Here's one of the things that has come in handy. This is the difference between ravens and crows. So people say, oh, that's a raven or that's a crow. So I can say, well, here's how you tell the difference. So I'm always looking for teachable moments. Like we'll see fox scat on a rock when they mark their territory. So I have a picture of a fox. So we find some scat, which the kids always call food. This is one I copied from Vicki. These are poison oak leaves. So I let the kids see them and show them, talking about leaves of three, let it be. So that's those. They were pretty good about giving them back. They put some fall ones, pretty bright red ones like those in the other room. This is kind of beaten up, but kids will often ask what the numbers are as you walk around the trail. And so you have to, and this is the brochure that goes with the trail, falling apart now. But I can show them this. I'll say, like, right here on this trail on item number 9, here's what we're supposed to be looking at. And that's come in handy a few times. This is a little card that we'll get to, hype topic list. These are the things that essentially we want everybody to cover when they're with the kids. And it comes in a big sheet, but we're going to give you a small size if you want it. After all these years, I don't pay much attention to that. I usually remember it. I try to hit the points, but I don't read it. Sometimes, depending on the time of the year, there'll be acorns in the granary tree. And in case there's not, I take my own granary tree. And this has got an acorn that's been eaten by a squirrel, but they're trying to eat it and get the pulp, so you can show the kids the pulp, what is actually the nutrient inside, why these animals want to eat acorns. Carry a thank you card, just remind me when I'm doing this. I have pictures. This is a picture of our local tree frogs. So if you're at the pond and you're looking at tadpoles and you say, these are going to grow with the frogs, you can say, and here's what the frogs look like. And this is like 3 times the size, because they're not very big. When they croak, they're like the size of a golf ball. So these are just various pictures. This is, you can't see this, but a mother that was accompanying a hike took this picture of a black racer eating a frog. And it's a wonderful picture. And when we go down to the pond, I talk about the frogs and snakes. We don't really see many snakes anymore. It's because they make so much noise. Let's see, anything else interesting? Little first aid kits and bandages. Yeah, that's my box. That's why I can't find it. I carry a box of acorns that the box came open. Because depending again on the time of year, we talk about how the oak tree, the oak sprouts, and the whole circle, food circle, and all that. Some of the kids have never seen an acorn, so I carry acorns. Some of them where I glue the tops back on, and some of them have holes in them. You can explain how the oak moth eats its way out when it grows up. And I have a little thing of gold. to buying bucks in a gift shop. Because when I had it.
You need new ones.
I didn't know it. So when you're telling the kids a story of Francisco Lopez discovered flakes of gold. This one is not very flaky anymore, it's shaped to make break up, but at least it's gold dust. So anyway, those are a few of the things that I carry around and hope that there'll be an opportunity to do something.
Let's see yours, Dave.
Huh?
You gotta show your prop over there?
Actually, he's gonna show his prop and then we're gonna see some more from Sandra.
Fred?
I have this ammo box. I usually take it when the kids are distracted. I'll put it beside the trail, put stuff on top of it, and then we'll find it. And I'll ask them, what do you think it is? We talk about it. And they're trying to see it. And say, well, let me pick it up. And you see a little place. And I get my hand under it and I pick it up. And they're gone. But then when they find out it's real, they'll hold it and get their picture taken with it. And then they send it to their mom.
I don't know if people know this, but I just learned last week that the guide that Fred mentioned that lists what all the numbered things are on the ecology trail, these are available in the gift shop for 25 cents. And it lists all the numbers and not a sort of a rough map of the trail.
Yeah, we had a really wonderful one on the Canyon Trail with about 32 stops, and we've redone it, and we have it available on the internet. You can download to your phone and listen to it when you walk up. And then, of course, we had the flood. And when I was putting those stakes in where they went, I got a tick, and I thought I grew a mole, and so I went to my dermatologist, and he said, "That's not a mole; it's a move eater." So he cut it out, and I took antibiotics for 2 weeks. That's what I got on the candy trip. So,
A good story is what he got on the canyon. And by the way, you do want to be aware of those stops because that is one of the biggest questions they have. What's that number? And I always tell them, if you are here and you're wanting to give a hike to someone else and you aren't sure what to talk about, you can go get that guide from the gift center. But this time, you don't need to worry about those because you have me. And then they stop asking about it, usually. Okay, here's another bag of tricks.
Well, I'm not going to show you the whole bag because a lot of it is redundant. But, you know, we don't always have acorns sitting around like we do this year. So I always bring out, I have a bag of these, and I talk about the acorns and how pointed they are. And people can feel how they feel when they go in the ground. They're like little bullets. And my favorite one is to show them a handful of acorns and say, which one will make the biggest oak tree? Well, of course they think the large one will, but they will all make a very large oak tree. The other thing I do is I show them the caps. This is from our Quercus agrifolia, our coast live oak. It actually fits on these guys. The next one I show them is in the valley. We have valley oaks. And then I say, oh my gosh, do you remember the, we also have, this is actually a very large one. This is from the scrub oak. And this is actually a very, very large scrub oak acorn. But then I say, remember, was it squirrels or chipmunks in Ice Age? What was it? Who liked that acorn?
Scrap.
It was what? A chipmunk?
Scat rat, I think.
Scat rat? And he was looking for that big acorn. I said, well, here's what the cap looks like. And they all go, oh my gosh. And we do have canyon oaks here. And I said, imagine if you could eat these rather than have to get a whole bunch of these littler ones. So again, I have a bag of acorns. Today, we have so many out there that it's easy to put together your own kit. These are, I made these and they're available for the older kids to show the difference between poison oak and basket bush. Look for the V on the center leaflet of the leaf versus the stem on the poison oak. and a little things they like to grow together. The bag of tricks to me is just in case, most of the time, in case we run out of things or they're not as excited and you want to give them something hands-on or they want to touch everything. So I happen to have a snake skin that I snagged from the staff here, and they like to look at it up close, and I know sometimes during the class they get to touch one, but when you only have 6 or 8 kids, they can all get to touch it. And the nice part I like about this particular one is I can show them the head, because on the head here, you can see the little scales that cover their eyes because they don't have eyelids, and they look like the snake has goggles. And that's usually pretty cool for the kids to look at. I always carry a bottle of water, and I'm laughing because, of course, this bottle is partially empty. I always have a full bottle. So if I need water for something, whether it be taking some ceanothus seeds, and which I have crumbled up and showing how it can become soapy or whatever. Kids don't like a used bottle, so that needs to be replaced. I do have my tracks, and somewhere in here, or I must have moved it, I also have the bird guide, because we see things, everybody wants to know what they are. I also carry, we not only have our bag of tricks for what we see, when we don't have anything else, but I bring my cordage to talk about the yucca and actually let them touch it and see it, and they go, oh my gosh, that's really strong. And I used to have a needle and thread that I had made from the yucca. Let's see what else I have. I carry, we are not doctors or nurses, even though we have lots of doctors and nurses here, but kids are always falling, and so I always make sure I have a Band-Aid and at least a couple of small gauzes and something to wrap something on. Because that's the primary, I think, the first aid that we might have is to stop bleeding, if anybody has anything so bad. And I always, and I have a few of these, I always ask the second adult with us to put the Band-Aid on, rather than me. I have doggy-doo bags, because sometimes we run into doggy-doo or despicable, ugly things on the trail that shouldn't be there. And I have gloves. And it's not just for dog do that you see somebody, his dog just pooped in front of you and it's not scat. But sometimes we run into some really despicable things on the trail that that shouldn't be there, like a baby diaper or something. And I use a bag, and I have a few extra little plastic bags in here. I have Kleenex with us. That's really important. You never know when you need Kleenex. What else do I have? I have a few other little goodies in here. We have this for sale, or we used to have them. I think we still do. This is a thermometer, a compass, a whistle, and it has a magnifying glass on it. Sometimes we see little tiny things, and sometimes I also carry one of the little bug boxes. I think they're like $1 here, or $1.50 for the bigger ones. And we could put things in it and analyze it a little bit more on the trail. And that's always fun for kids. And other than that, again, I have little plastic bags, and I mentioned the bird guide. And this side, again, like I said, is my personal side. I have a slightly bigger first aid kit. I also have some netting here, in case we have a lot of gnats. Not for while I'm hiking with the kids, but sometimes when we're going down the canyon, we're going to a wet spot and there's a lot of gnats around. I use the netting. It's very inexpensive at Big Five to go over your face to keep the gnats out. So that's it. That's it. I have.
I want you to notice one of the comments she made that I think is really important. The bag of tricks is your backup. It's secondary to letting them interact with nature. I have occasionally seen a docent who was going down the trail and would stop in front of something and say, and here is a picture of this plant. And here is a picture of this animal. And the whole, I felt more like, well, we could have done that in the classroom. I've seen a docent before who brought little whiteboards for the kids to sit down quietly and write about the things that they have seen. We don't want this to be a typical classroom experience, so you are going to be able to find your own way of doing things. If you want to carry a bag, these are some really great ideas, and especially when you're starting out, if you're less secure about finding enough things to talk about, you can have your idea of, well, I can go here and I can talk about this, and then if I forget something, I can look at this or have that. But in the long run, you will start to feel what works for you, and you are finding your own identity in that chain. That it's like a food web, it's the docent web that you are a part of. And if you see ideas that other docents are using, don't ever think about, oh, well, that's his idea, so I don't want to steal it. We are a team, and all good ideas that work for you belong to you, so make them your own, and the more experience you have out there, the easier it'll be, and the more you will feel that connection. Also, it's a great experience for you to take a chance to follow different docents, because you'll learn things that will suit your style and be great for you. I wanted to show you a couple more things that I have in my bag. You can see everyone has their different, and I know this particular item I'm super lucky to have. When I was a little girl, I lived in Northern California, and buried in our yard, we found a mortar and pestle. This is actually a paint pot, so it's so small that it wouldn't have been good for acorn grinding, and in some ways, this may belong in a museum, but I love that it gets to be in the hands of the kids that are going out on the trail, and sometimes I let them grind up an acorn, but I give everyone a chance to have that hands-on connection. I know I can't offer you to have one of these authentic artifacts in your bag, but there are several docents who like to carry a mortar and pestle that you can purchase for less than $15 at a home goods store, and to have them do the other thing. Kind of as promised that I was going to tell you, I do have the photosynthesis bag. So when I have kids who are talking about, I'm hungry, when am I going to eat? I say, you know what, too bad you're not a plant, because then you could make your own food, huh? Well, wait a minute, I have my photosynthesis bag. Maybe we can make some food. So we take the bag, and we talk about, well, photosynthesis, and I do this usually with younger kids. What do we need? We need sun, so we hold the bag up to the sun, and then what else do we need? We need water, so I'll have this that has just a tiny bit of water in it, and I'll pour it in, and then, well, we also need some carbon dioxide. You have carbon dioxide in your breath. Go ahead, and every kid will blow into the bag, and I take it and I shake it up. Say, what? A fake sandwich? You guys made a fake sandwich? Why'd you do that? Oh, wait a minute. Because you're not plants and you can't make real food. And then I never have them talk about food again the whole time we're trying to finish our hike and concentrate on it. So if you'd like to make a photosynthesis bag, all you need is, a double bag, and in the inside you can hide your fake sandwich. It's really simple and actually really effective if you're the kind of docent that gets bothered by having the same question get asked over and over again. You may well be. Okay, now guess what? It is about your turn to do some of the talking. What I have with me are some cards with pictures of things that you are, well, this one you're not likely to see on the hike, but it's possible you would see this. Most of these are items that you're likely to see when you are out walking in Placer Canyon, at least things that you should be familiar with. You are going to have a chance to teach each other about these things. So really what I need to do is I'm going to have two tables. Any of the docents who are experienced, if you would like to sit at the table, you're welcome to do so. But I need you sitting across the table from